Welcome to the Busy to Balance podcast. I am your host, Jamie Zweer, and I'm the founder of Oh How Healthy. This podcast is all about how to show you, the overworked, overwhelmed, and occasionally unhealthy woman, how to find health and balance in all different areas of your life. I will share with you digestible, bite-sized bits of info on everything from balancing a healthy plate to keeping a healthy home and everything in between. Now listen, I know that you are busy, and that is why I will keep these episodes short, sweet, and to the point. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. I think this is one of my favorite episodes yet. I'm interviewing a friend and financial coach, Ari Doakes, and she's the owner of Badass Budget Babes. So we're talking all about money, all about debt, all about budgeting, all about how to maintain relationships when it comes to money, all sorts of good stuff. So you're going to want to take out a pen and a piece of paper or the notepad on your phone and jot down some tips, because Ari is chock full of them in this episode. So I hope you enjoy it, and I will catch you at the end. Okay, so hi Ari. Thank you for being on the show. How are you?
I'm great, Jamie. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to have you on. I'm so excited about this topic of money. I have, I think I'm a nerd at heart and really love the idea of money. So I'm excited to chat with you today. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone? Tell us who you are and what it is you do.
Yeah, so I'm Ari. I run a blog and finance consulting agency called Badass Budget Babe, where our whole philosophy is, money doesn't have to suck. It doesn't have to be boring. It should be fun, because it's a tool that's going to give you the kind of life that, ultimately you want to lead, and that you're in complete control of it. So I help small businesses and personal finance people really just get an understanding of their finances more, so that they can tweak and twist the money to be able to do the things that are important to them. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, that sounds awesome. I love that. You're giving it more of a fun feel to work with money instead of this overwhelming task, right? It can sometimes be.
Yeah.
So how did you get involved with money?
So my dad actually, he has worked in finance my whole life, and even as a little kid, I used to sit up and watch the stock market with him, and thought money was really cool. And then I got my degree in accounting, tried to work for a CPA firm. I was there for a couple of years and realized it was really boring. I used to get in trouble for talking too much in my cubicle and wearing too cute of clothes, people would comment on it. And so I kind of switched to, I started working for a company selling wedding advertising, which is completely different, but noticed that in my conversations with these wedding vendors, a lot of them had money struggles, and I would just get this urge to be oh my gosh, we can totally fix this and make sure you have enough to grow your business and still can put food on the table, and realize this knowledge of accounting and this market of, smaller businesses or people that are just trying to do something that they love, those two meet, and there's really a need in that market. And so that led me to taking what was just a small, bookkeeping side hustle, turning it into the business that I have now, and being able to help solopreneurs and people with their personal finance to really do more. And so I've been doing that for a bit, and it's a ton of fun.
That is awesome. Have you always been good with money since you started off, with your dad being so well versed with money? Have you always been good with it?
So no, actually, and that was probably one of the most frustrating things, because head knowledge, I knew what I should have done. I read Dave Ramsey's book when I was in middle school. I knew better than to get into debt and to not be good with my money. I knew that in my head, but in college and then straight out of college, all of a sudden, I was an accountant. I was making more money than I ever had in life, and somehow I was always broke. And then I was racking up credit card debt, and I was having a whole lot of fun while I was at it, but honestly, I have no idea what I spent money on in that time of life. And so I fell into this hole, and it was actually really shameful feeling, because it was like, okay, well, I knew what I should have been doing. So, like, I knew better, and I still ended up in this hole anyways. And so it took some time and some effort to be, like, climbing out of that hole. So, I haven't always been good with it, but it was like I knew what I should have done.
That's really interesting, because I'm learning about Dave Ramsey now, later in life, after, you're in college and, you see it's everything at Target and you're like, I need everything. So it's almost like you had to make your own mistakes in order to learn from them. Right? Because someone can tell you, I mean, we're all kids, we're all teenagers, and we grow up, and someone says, like, no, don't do that, no, don't date that guy, no, don't, like, but you kind of have to make the mistake to learn, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think probably, so, my degree was not cheap by any means, and I think part of it was like, oh, I'm in so much debt already, like, who cares if I go put this on a credit card? Like, what difference does that make? That's so small in comparison. When in reality, like, making those mistakes, it really kind of just put me further and further behind. And, I'm glad that I made them in hindsight, because it's like, okay, now I can show, like, I can actually feel where someone's pain is coming from when they're stressed out about money. It's not like I've been doing it perfectly the whole time, and I'm going to come around and, holier than thou, tell you how to do it right. It's like, I've been there, I've done that, and I get that it sucks, and I get that it's hard, but, like, you got this. Like, we just got to get out of this hole kind of thing.
Yes. I love that you said that too, because that is really why money and finances are a part of what I teach in my coaching practice, because you can be as healthy as you want to be. You can be at the gym 7 times a week. You can eat super healthy. But if you're super stressed out about bills, that's putting your body into fight or flight response constantly. You're fighting with your spouse. You're feeling overwhelmed and stressed out. And that has a huge impact on your health. So do you see that a lot with the people that you work with?
Absolutely. It's the thing that keeps them up at night. It's the thing that even prevents them from doing, like, oh, I'm so stressed out about bills, I should cut my gym membership, and I should stop buying, fruits and vegetables, because it's cheaper to go on ahead and buy, like, freezer pizzas and things like that, because I'm so stressed out. So it snowballs into the other areas of your life as well.
Yes, exactly. That's why me and you have to, like, tag team this issue in the future. It's so important.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so important. But I remember before when we chatted before, you said you had 4 strategies, right, in order for someone to break out of that vicious cycle. Like, what is something that someone can start with to, get out of that situation?
Yeah, so, okay, it sounds weird and totally, like, not, like, spreadsheet money-wise, but honestly, step 1 is, like, forgiving yourself and let it go. Like, that was probably my biggest problem that kept me stuck in that cycle for as long as it was that shame of, like, I knew better, and I did it anyways, and I felt so ashamed. I didn't want to tell anybody, so I didn't get any accountability. I just was going to, like, bury it down and, put my head in the sand on it. But once I sat down and was like, look, this is a problem, and I get you knew what you were doing, but, like, I forgive myself for the mistakes that I made. And it took a while. Like, I literally had to, like, get up every day and be like, okay, I forgive myself for this mistake, and, like, I'm going to do better. I forgive myself. And just, like, let that go. So now you're free to go and actually make changes instead of sabotaging yourself. And then you sit down, you get out. I always suggest maybe get your last month's bank statements. Go through them with the highlighter, like, what were the necessities, what are the things you bought that you love that you bought, and what are the things that you bought that are just, like, well, like, that was, I mean, that was nice. I found a lot of things in my spending habits that, like, I don't know why. I shopped all the time. And in reality, like, I really don't like shopping, honestly. Like, every once in a while, sure, it's great to go to Target, but, like, I feel like crap every time I walked out, so why was I doing it, right? Or, I could go out with friends and without even thinking about it, and when I, would go out, I become that person that's like, drinks for everybody on me. And in reality, after all dropping $200 on a Friday night, I realized what I wanted to do was spend time with friends. So, okay, how can I shift that in a way that I spend like $30 instead of $200? And I started having people over for dinner instead of going out to the bars. And so things like that. So identifying where your habits are that are not serving you, and that are not serving what you really love. And maybe you love shopping. Great, that's fine, as long as, you cut off the things that you don't care for. And then creating a plan. So for some people, like, people call it a budget, but really all it is saying, like, this is what I spend money on. This is what I want to spend money on. That's it. You're in charge of it. And then just, like, create that plan. Do that plan over and over and over again, just like working out. You eat healthier, you get on an exercise plan, and then you just do it over and over and over again until you see results. And then track that progress. There was one point where I was feeling really bad about my credit card debt. And then I started going through my bank statements, and I was like, oh, wait, on this credit card, I actually haven't, like, all my statements for the last 6 months are just payment and then interest charge and payment and then interest charge. And I was able to, like, feel really good about that. Like, oh, okay, like, I am doing better. Look, I'm not spending on that card anymore, so that must be good. And just tracking that progress. Maybe it's, a payoff tracker. There's free ones online. Maybe it's in your bullet journal. Maybe it's just like a spreadsheet, whatever it is. Track that progress so you can look back and be like, wow, okay, this is working. This is worthwhile. And pretty soon you'll see results and you'll hit those goals. And it just takes time sometimes.
Yeah, I love everything about that. And it's so true. When you get into that situation too, you don't want to share it with anyone. You're feeling shameful, and without seeking help, you're like, I can do this. But really, without breaking those, because we can be a compulsive spender, or sometimes we're compulsive savers too, where people don't want to let loose and spend any of their money because they try, work so hard to save it. So you kind of have to break that habit down so that you can heal from that. What about people who feel like they just don't have money to budget? Like, let's say you're like, I don't want to go over my budget because what comes in doesn't match what I need to pay. So do you ever experience people with that scenario where they just are terrified of budget because of that?
Yeah, and like, looking at it, and it's just like, I'm always in a hole. I'm always in a hole, and that feeling of like, I just don't want to look at it. But the thing that it helps, right, if I can look at your budget and we can sit down and be like, okay, this is like the bare necessities, and then like, here's whatever extra things you do, and then there's your income, right? And we can look at that, and let's say maybe at the bare bones, like, you haven't done anything fancy, you didn't go out, you ate beans and rice or whatever, you're $500 over budget just by paying bills. The reason why that's still a good thing to know, even as scary as that sounds, you can now create a plan. Okay, so you either have to figure out how to cut your bills by $500, or you've got to bring in an extra $500 this month. And now $500, that breaks down to, okay, so $250 a paycheck or $125 a week. What can I do this week to bring in $125, right? And now you can start looking at that and create an action. Okay, I'm going to go sell some stuff on Craigslist, or I'm going to go babysit this weekend, or dog walk, or we live in the most like side hustle, like convenient time ever, right? Like, you can literally buy grind and start making money. Gary Vee has been running around like going to garage sales, buying stuff for free and like flipping it, right? So there's so much opportunity, but you can look at that and be like, okay, $125 a week, that's not a scary number. I can do that. And now you can create it, instead of just being scared of it and doing nothing, you can now create an action behind it and do something about it. And it's so much less scary when you know this is all I have to do, and you can break that down.
Oh, I love that. You turn that more into like an empowerment feeling than a feeling of scarcity. Because as soon as you look at it and you acknowledge what's going on, you then have power over it.
Exactly.
That is beautiful. Yes. Because it does feel good when you do look over your money, and then half the time you don't even realize how much money is coming in, right? I'm sure. Where you're like, why was I... Because in your head, you could think one thing, but on paper, it's probably a whole nother thing. Or I didn't realize that I spent however much money at Starbucks this month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. By just seeing it in black and white, it gives you the power, like you said, it empowers you to make whatever changes you need to make to make it work. Like maybe you are spending a ton of money on Starbucks and you're like, okay, how could I just cut that in half, right? I'm not saying never walk into Starbucks again. I love my coffee. I'm not telling you to do that if you love your coffee. But how can you tweak that to make your ultimate goals more feasible? You know what I mean? Like if it's, am I going to Starbucks, they're putting dinner on the table, like you can at least see that and be like, all right, I made my own decision instead of just like unconsciously making action.
Yeah, I think that is such a more viable way to go about budgeting than I know some people online. We keep mentioning David Ramsey. It's a mutual fan of ours, but he's so harsh. Like I like him, but it's like, no, like you're going to be the weirdo that doesn't go out, and you're, not going to spend this for the next 3 years. And like, what are the chances that you're not going to get Christmas presents for the next 3 years? Like, that's just not realistic. So you have to be realistic in this situation also, right?
Absolutely. And, like, that's one thing, like, I've been able to, I mean, like, I love Dave Ramsey, and he's helped, like, so many people. But, like, there's other, finance gurus out there. And so I kind of have, like, taken a little bit from all of them. Like, for my student loans, according to Dave, like that's baby step 2. And I've got over 6 figures of student loan debt. And so like looking at that number, I'm like, I'm not eating beans. And that's gonna, I can bust my tail as hard as I can, and that's still gonna take me a minimum of 5 years. Like, I'm not eating beans and rice for the next 5 years. It's just not sustainable for me. And so I was able to look at that and be like, okay, well then what else do I do? How can I still fit like my fun, 20-something-year-old life into this while accomplishing the goal of getting out of that debt? Maybe it takes me, 6 or 7 years to do it instead of 5, but like, I'm not miserable for 5 years. I'm just like mildly miserable for 7.
Yeah. And since you brought up debt, how do you attack debt? Do you just cut up your credit cards? Do you pay the one with like the highest interest rate, or like what is your concept on that really?
So my concept actually is more like pay the one that stresses you out the most. Like, so Dave Ramsey recommends the snowball, which is your lowest balance, regardless of interest rate. You put them all in order from lowest balance, and then kind of start at the first one, put everything extra you have, and then just when that's paid off, you roll that whole entire thing that you've been putting there onto number 2, and your payment will automatically, like how much you're spending per month will stay the same, but the payment per item will get bigger and bigger as you move down.
Okay.
And then another philosophy is the avalanche, which is you do the same thing, but they're in order by highest interest rate, versus, if I'm paying off like a 0% interest card versus like my credit card that maybe has a bigger balance, but it's a 25% interest, I'm going to save more money by paying that 25% interest first. those are both great ideas. What I personally do is I switch them around, and maybe, you have a card that, like, you had a joint account with an ex-boyfriend. I had a friend, she canceled her wedding, and that was of higher priority. Like, every single time she had to make a payment on that card, or, like, remembered that card, like, it made her stomach churn. So interest or not, or balance, wherever it falls in those lines, for her, paying that off immediately made her feel better. It lessened her stress level. So whatever debt, and I do agree with the whole, like, this is how much I'm paying a month, and that doesn't change, and you kind of just roll each payment into whatever. But the order really doesn't matter. What matters is that you're paying extra, right? Like, don't stress about, like, snowball versus avalanche. If you're still making minimum payments, then what difference does it make? It doesn't matter which one you go for. Keep it simple. Start paying extra on something, pick one, and go from there. And I change my plan all the time, though. I probably, like, every 6 months, I get bored with whatever plan I'm doing, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm going to do it this way now, and try out different things and learn different things from people, and, like, go, like, oh, I want to try that now. But as long as you're still making progress forward, it doesn't really matter, honestly.
Yeah, I've heard that before. And even if you owe a debt to someone that isn't even a credit card, it's like to your friend or something, and it's like weighs heavily on you, then just take care of that first so that you can emotionally feel better about the whole thing. Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and so when we talk about emotions and finances, I know we spoke a little bit about it already, but what I like to say and what I like to recommend to my girls is to have a money date with their finances. And I think I got Kate Northrup.
Yes.
You know Kate Northrup? Yeah. So I had her book, A Money the Love Story. And she talks about having a money date. And it's just like the concept blew me away. And she calls her bills invoices for blessings already received, right? So you get this bill in the mail, and it's not a surprise. Like, you charge your phone all month long. Like, you deserve to pay. Like, PSE&G deserves its money. Like, you should be happy to pay it. And you have a cell phone, and you have all these things. So when you swap your mindset about it and make it kind of, changes your perspective and puts you in a little bit of a different mood when you go ahead and pay it. But I also took that concept of having these money dates with yourself, or with your spouse, because that is huge. I know your spouse, and you really need to be on the same page with this whole thing. How do you feel? Do you incorporate that at all, money dates? How do you feel about those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My money dates, they're fun. I used to have them with mimosas. I'm cutting mimosas for right now. But, yeah, I, do, a whole, brunch. I make myself a nice breakfast. I, give myself a drink, and I have fun with it. Your money date should be fun, right? Like, this is you taking care of your finances is a form of self-care, right? Like, future me is going to be very excited that I, put money in savings, or that I lowered my monthly expenses, or, that I set money aside to go travel and what have you. And that's a fun event. And I love what you said about, being more, showing more gratitude, and thanks for the bills that come. It's not a surprise, and some people can look at them and be like, oh, I hate bills. But you're absolutely right. They gave you the life that you have. You don't want to pay your cell phone bill? Fine, get rid of your cell phone. And nobody would do that. So, switching your mindset is all you can do.
Yes. Yeah. And how do you feel about, going over your money with your spouse? What if your spouse is just not on the same page as you? What if they like to spend a lot of money, or what if they get really frustrated and angry about going over bills? Because men are sometimes, I don't know if you notice, a little harder to deal with than women. So what would you tell the ladies that, have to deal with, sometimes they're men that are not on the same page?
Yeah, I've definitely dealt with that in the past. But it can go one of two ways, right? So if your spouse is at least open to sitting down and having this money date, like I said, make it a date night. Go get a nice bottle of wine, get, your favorite food together or what have you, and really sit down and spend that time. But what I find works if they're not into it is figuring out how to put it in a way that gets them excited, right? So instead of saying, honey, we're overspending and, you spent too much this month and making them feel bad about it, you phrase it in a way of, what, sweetheart, like, we really want to take that Disney cruise next year, and I bet if we were to make these tweaks, we could make that happen, and we could cash flow it, and it would be so much fun. And now all of a sudden, instead of him feeling like, oh, she's just, like, restricting my money, it's, oh, every time that I choose to be smart with my money, we're going on a Disney cruise. And, like, you flip that mindset or whatever it is that's important to him. Like, my spouse is not super interested in a Disney cruise like I am. But that's one way. And another way, though, like, if they're just so against it, so not on board, sometimes you might have to sit there and do it by yourself. Until they start. One thing I've run into before is, like, I would talk about it all the time, and it'd be like, let's sit down and have money dates, and, like, let's do this together, and it's going to be so great. And he was actually skeptical. He's like, well, I haven't seen the results from you yet, so what's the point? And so I had to sit there and just do it myself and work at it until the results started coming, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, so this is working, this is worthwhile to sit down, and I just had to kind of, like, suck it up and do it by myself, which it sucked. It was lonely, and it felt like I'm trying, and you're just not on board. But, so figuring out just, like, where is the line that you can either get him involved or, like, whatever it takes to get him on the same page. But in that time, like, he's still going to have, right, he can't be spending $1,000 a month on frivolous things if, like, that's your joint income and you need that to really make progress on that. He does have to kind of meet you halfway, but, like, come from a place of love and from a place of, I'm doing this because we want better, or we want whatever it is in our lives that, those dreams and goals that we've talked about. And a lot of times, like, we use our money date to talk about those dreams and goals and to be like, yeah, like, when this is all cleared up, like, we want to travel, we want to move to Spain, we want to, take our kid all these different places in the world, and yeah, like, that's what we're working towards. This isn't about paying off a credit card, this is about taking our kid to Spain, and being able to kind of flip that mindset.
Yes. Wow. That was beautifully said, right? I mean, I think most of the arguments, I don't know what the percentage is, but the majority of arguments that arise in relationships is over money. And when you can come to a common ground, you use your voice, you set those boundaries, you create these strong relationships in your life, and especially around talking about money, it can be extremely powerful, and it can heal a relationship. It's really sad to see how many relationships are destroyed around this talk of money. And money is not, it's just paper when you think about it. I mean, it's a number, it's a monetary value. Like, it doesn't make you a good or bad person. Money is not evil. It doesn't have to be, it can add stress or overwhelm or, great happiness to someone's life. And it comes down to managing it, right? In a positive way.
It's just a tool.
I mean, I know some people, and I'm sure you've come across people that believe money is evil or bad, or people who have a lot of money are bad people or greedy people, and that, do you ever come across that?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that I work on first, actually, like, every first consultation with someone, like, when they start working with me, we do go over the budget, right? We, like, go over the books, but we go over that mental side as well, that money mindset, because at the end of the day, like, if deep down you believe, like, people who have a lot of money are greedy, it doesn't matter what you do. So every single time that you start getting a lot of money, you're going to find a way to sabotage yourself, because internally you're like, well, I don't want to be a greedy person. So I those two things, your brain can't fit with those two things at the same time. And so it's like identifying those money fears or blocks, and then saying like, okay, like where did that come from, and like what's a different belief that you could attach to that, or if you genuinely deep down believe it, you know, I've suggested to some people like how many rich, like go spend time with rich people, or you know, go find me 10 people that are super wealthy, like Bill Gates status, that are doing good things in the world. And I want you to go intentionally seek that out. Because if you can give yourself examples of people that have what you want to have and are doing, but are the kind of person you want to be, your brain will be able to be like, well, that can't be true then, you know, like, because clearly, you know, Bill Gates is giving away his entire fortune and, you know, before he dies, so how could he possibly be crazy?
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of look at those and your brain can't sit with those two alternating views at the same time.
Yes. You know, when we talk about mindset now, like you can get more money. Like let's say you're, you know, let's say you're working a job and you're making $30,000 a year, and then you get a raise and then you're making maybe $50,000-$60,000. Like I find that unless you heal that money mindset, you will find a way to still be in the same position even though you're making more, if not double. You know what I mean? Like it's this weird compulsion that I think we have that, well, if we have this money, we have to spend it. Or people don't know how to, like sometimes the idea of having all this extra money in your savings account can be weird. You're like, well, what do you mean? Like if I have this money, then I go to the mall, right? Like that's just what it equates to. So when you're in this one situation for so long, being in that frame of mind where you have money, that can be hard to get used to. Like lottery winners, they lose their fortune because they don't have the right money mindset. Well, not every lottery winner, but the majority of lottery winners, I should have like pulled up my stats. Like I should have known. I was talking to a numbers girl. Like, let's get your stats out.
No, it's a large percentage. Though you're right. It's the majority of them lose their fortune within the first, I think, like 3 years. Or something like that. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, because it's the money mindset piece. So, you know, and I feel like there's like there has to be a fine balance between totally woo woo and like totally rice and beans for the next 3 years. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think one thing that is helpful is like having a plan for money before it gets to you. So a lot of times in my budget or like my money plan, I set a lot of percentages, and that helps me avoid lifestyle creep from the perspective of like 10% is 10%, whether I made $100 or $100,000, 10% is 10%. So I set that, you know, 10% goes here, 20% goes there, you know, whatever my percentages are that are focused on my goals. And then I always have a percentage that's for me and it's just my fun fund. So if I worked really hard and, you know, I went from $100 to $100,000, like, yeah, I still want a piece of that. And I want to go have fun and I want to go do something, you know, crazy with my percentage. And that's great. I should, like, what's the point of having money if I'm not going to, like, enjoy it? But my goals are still taken care of, the percentage, and I have those percentages set now. So no matter how many dollars come into my bank account between now and next week, they have a home before they get there. And I think that's one way for me that I was able to, like, strategize my way out of money mindset issues of, like, spending it as soon as I get it. It's like, well, I spent it, but, you know, it already had a home before it got here.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And like, that's really the beauty of creating a budget, because it gives each dollar not only a home, but you're a vessel then. I feel like you become almost a vessel for money. Like once you clear it out and once you don't allow it to have power over you, it can kind of flow a little bit easier. Do you believe that to be true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When you, like, open that door and just, like, let it flow and stop, like, holding on to, like, every little piece of it, whichever side you're on, whether you're saving too much or spending too much, like whatever it is that's got you holding on to that mindset. When you let that go and you just kind of like you think of like a money date, right? To go back to that, like, if you were on a date with a person and you treated them the way that you treat money, like, I am scared you're going to leave all the time, and I like it when you're here, but then I go spend it as soon as you get in the door. I get rid of you, and, like, I don't put you towards the things that like, why would that person stick around if you treated them like that?
Yeah, it really is a great analogy. And, you know, what you put out in the world also comes back to you. So I like to always be like a good tipper or purchase, I'm not a crazy spender, but I like to invest in certain things or quality books because I know that my return on my investment is huge. And that's why I invest in my own coaches and programs, and I'm constantly learning, and not just that's just what I like to spend money on, but it's investing, right? You have a return on your investment when you put money towards something. Yeah. So what are your favorite budgeting tools? Do you have a favorite app, or do you have a specialized program? What do you use to budget?
So I'm a pretty old-fashioned person. So I have like a physical notebook and an Excel spreadsheet is what I use for myself. Because I love Excel so much. I'm a little nerd about that. But Mint is a great app that's free for keeping track of what's going in and out, and you can hook up your bank accounts to it, and it'll categorize everything, and you kind of can just go through it and see where you're spending. It'll give you a little pie chart of where your money is being allocated, so you can be, and it kind of shows you how much you have available to spend. And so that one's really popular. You Need a Budget, which is Dave Ramsey's app. I know it is a paid app, but a lot of people really like it when, especially if they're trying to get out of debt and really trying to be like a little tighter with things. Mm-hmm. That one's really popular. Or like I still use good old-fashioned cash envelopes for like my discretionary spending. So, when I see there's only $5 in there left, I'm like, do I really need Starbucks? Like, this isn't getting refilled for another 2 weeks. Like, do I need Starbucks right now, or should I wait till I need it? So you can kind of like see it more physically than just swiping your card. But I'm personally really old-fashioned on that note.
Yeah. Do you ever carry around cash with you instead of your debit card? Because I heard that when you use cash instead of your debit card, it has more of an emotional impact when you spend it, because you don't want to part with this money that you work so hard for, instead of just like, all right, swipe here, swipe there. Do you ever carry around cash and spend that?
All the time.
Yeah?
Cash is clean.
So is that like your go-to kind of technique?
Yeah, for any, like my gas for my car, my eating out budget, and my, like, fun money or miscellaneous, those three and then groceries as well. Those ones I keep in cash. Everything else, like, I'm not going to go pay my bills in cash or anything like that. But yeah, those four, because those are the ones, especially that fun miscellaneous, like you just said, like, do I want to part with that money? It makes you think about it differently. It's way easier to go out with friends and swipe $200, like I said, like I used to do, than if I brought $50 with me to go out, like, that's what I got. When it's gone, it's gone, and nice over someone else is picking up the tab.
And especially I feel like when you're grocery shopping, that can be so powerful.
All the time. All the time, groceries get me. I love to eat.
So do you, like, walk around with a calculator in the store?
No, but I actually think I need to, because in my head, I'll, like, calculate it, and then I get up to the register. I'm like, how? Like, I didn't buy anything that wasn't on the list. Like, I don't understand. But yeah, I know people that will carry around the calculator, or I know someone, she carries around, like, not a step counter, but like when you go to an amusement park and like the ticket person is like has a little clicker, she carries around one of those at the grocery store, so she can kind of add it up as she goes, and it's like less intrusive than a calculator, less intrusive looking at least than a calculator. So there's different things that you can get. You figure out, like, where is it that you tend to, like, go overboard. And for me, it's still always groceries.
So what do you do? Do you use your debit card after that if you go over your cash?
So if I go over my cash, I do look and see, like, what did I grab that was not on the list, and there's usually a few items, and I'm not ashamed to put something back. Like, you know what? Like, you can, random grocery store checkout lady, like, you can think I'm weird, but, like, I'm not afraid to put this back.
Good for you, girl. I love this.
What was that?
I say, good for you. I love this.
But if it's like, if they're all necessities, then I'll pull out the debit card. But then I have to take it from someplace else. So I might take it from, like, my fun money or my eating out budget. I'll go there first because those are kind of like play money. And so I'll go there first because typically what I leave in the bank account is earmarked already for bills with, like, a little bit of cushion, but I try not to just keep too much extra in there. I'd rather it go towards my goals than, like, sit in the bank account, because I will find a way to spend it if it's sitting there. And that's not in alignment with, like, what is important to me.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. So I think that the hardest part for some people is sticking to it. Like, do you have any, like, tips to stick to this habit of creating a budget?
Well, one is figure out, like, go back to your goals all the time. Every time that you want to give up, or every time you want to, like, swipe your credit card, or whatever it is you're struggling with, like, attach it to your goals. You know what I mean? Like, for me, I love to travel. Like, I'm out of the country every chance that I get. And so if I have, like, a destination in mind, put a destination, like, put a picture of it in your wallet right in front of your debit card. So when you go swipe it, you have to decide, like, is this a necessity, or is this taking me away from what I really want? Because that's all it is, right? It's either going to push you further towards that goal, or it's going to take you away from it. That's it. It's not good or bad. It just is going to put you further or closer away. I mean, closer or further away than from your goals.
Yeah.
So that's one thing people will do. And then figuring out what works. Like, I've tried a million apps. I've even tried, like, a cash envelope style app because I was tired of carrying around cash. And I realized, for me, you know what? Having it on my phone, I don't go back and check it often enough. Whereas for some people, having it written down, they'll never use it if it's just in writing. So it's okay. Like, I guess be firm on the goal, but flexible about your approach. Like I said, I change my, debt payoff plan and, my percentages probably every 6 months because things have changed in the last 6 months, and I'm okay with that. But the ultimate goal is still there, getting out of debt, saving, traveling. That's the goal. And so always go back to that and like, be okay. You're not a failure if you set a budget on January 1st and didn't look at it again until February. Like, that's not failure. It just is, like, you pick up this month and say, okay, what can I do differently that's going to put me closer towards my goals?
Yeah.
And that's, I guess it's not a sprint, right? You're not going to just, like, get financially fit and then, like, be okay forever and, like, never have to touch it again. It's the rest of your life in the same way that, like, health and fitness is. I can't just crash diet and think that's going to last me forever. Like, no, like, you have to intentionally make lifestyle changes. And so just remember, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. There's no such thing as, like, failing it. You just get up tomorrow and see what else is going to push you towards your goals.
Yeah. And I really think that's the beauty of a coach, really, a financial coach, a health coach, whatever kind of coach you work with. They hold you accountable to really reminding you, giving you those tips, giving you those healthy habits that you need to instill to really break out of those bad habits and then create a good habit, whether it's around money or health. So shameless plug to both of us.
Shameless plug.
But what do you?
It's important.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much true. So what do you say to someone that is like, well, I just don't have the money. Like, I want to invest in a financial coach, yet I just don't have the money. Like, what would you say to someone like that?
doing it your way, you haven't found the money so far, which is okay. But, you know, how much more money could you find, or how much money could you create if you worked with someone that, like, knew what they were doing and could help you not only get it, but stick with it and, like, break those habits, you know what I mean? In the same way of, like, if I have health goals and you can do it by yourself. Like, you are so empowered, you are so amazing, you can do it by yourself, you can. But just like hiring a trainer and a nutritionist or like a fitness coach, you're going to get there faster, probably easier if you have some help. So if someone's saying, I don't have the money, my question to them is, if it's important to you, how can you find or create the money to do this so that you can create more money in the future and get that, like you said, that return on investment?
Exactly. Yeah, because, you know, before we started this this call, we have a mutual friend that is a business coach, and the return on the investment was, you know, substantial in the amount that was paid towards the course, you know? So
absolutely.
So yeah, it's just that you got to work on the mindset. You got to remember it's a return on your investment and how fast you want to really reach your goal. Do you want to go from point A to point C to point F to point, you know, it's like the zigzag and really, and I know I just want to go from point A to point B to point C. Like, I just want the right answers. And I know that is what a coach provides me. So, you know, I think that the work is really valuable.
And it's not just the instruction on and like the hand holding on how to get from, you know, A to B to C in order. It's also, sometimes it's like that safe space as well, you know, of like when you're like, oh my God, like I've had clients come to me and like they like kind of didn't schedule any calls for a couple of weeks, and I'm just, you know, checking in, hey, how's it going? And, you know, they're like, I've been messing up so bad with my money. Like, we had a plan, and I've totally just, like, crashed and burned, and, like, I don't know what to do now. And I've had the opportunity, which is really something I enjoy, is, like, being able to encourage someone and, like, it's okay. Like I said, it's a journey. It's not a sprint. Like, let's jump on the phone and let's recreate the plan, or let's see what it is that we need to do. And you know, like, you don't have to feel shame around.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And like it's no reflection of who you are as a person. And a lot of times with money, that, like, people connect those two. But, you know, if I was, like, a good person, I wouldn't be making these financial mistakes. And it's like, no, those have no correlation to each other.
Yeah, you know, that's why it's so powerful to, you know, so I really wanted to have you on and open up this discussion further, because money is not something we talk about to everyone. And you can be in your situation and you can feel so shameful and frustrated and sad, and you're home fighting with your spouse and you're just stressed the hell out. And you're like, well, our neighbors just bought a car, and, you know, whoever's just, you know, everyone's always doing something. So you just assume that other people are just doing amazing. And that's not the reality. It's actually 1 in 7 people are struggling as much as you are. So it's really, you know, you can't compare yourself, and opening up the conversation and talking about it just makes you feel so much better. And then someone else can relate and say, you know, I'm going through that same thing. So I just wish that more people were talking more openly about it. And I guess that's the benefit of having, you know, close girlfriends and coaches and, you know, people around you, or even, you know, people like Dave Ramsey and his show and your blog, that really highlight that other people are experiencing trouble in this area other than yourself.
Yeah, or, I mean, like, with the internet, we can be connected with so many people that, like, for the first time in history that we could never be connected to before. And so, like on Instagram and on Facebook, there's this whole, like, hashtag debt-free community. And I'm telling you, it's, like, thousands of people across the entire world, from, you know, California to Australia, and all that are kind of, like, on, you know, on this journey, sharing their wins, sharing their struggles. It's actually so encouraging if you can find that community to lift you up as well, and like like have in your corner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like nobody's trying. Some people are further along. Some people started, like I know people who started with like $5,000 a debt, and they're like freaked out about it. And I'm like, wow, I wish I only had $5,000 in student loans. Like I'd give anything to have that number, and we're starting in completely different spaces, but like we can support each other and cheer each other on and, hold each other accountable. And so like there's communities out there that you can trust and that like exist. And I think that is a huge reason why people become successful at it. It's like having that community and just having that openness and finding ways to get out of the shame factor that comes with this whole finance game.
Yes. I could talk to you all day. Like I said, I have this,
really
I love talking about money, and I'm definitely going to have you back on. The collaboration ideas in my head are going crazy right now.
A little bit, yeah.
But I know that my girls want to hear more from you, so I'll have you on in the future. But what do you have? You said you have a new program coming out?
I do, yeah, and this one's a little bit more geared towards anybody that is a solopreneur or like single member LLC, especially if you're in your like first 1 to 3 years, would be a really great option is a tax prep course. They made so many tax changes this year with the new administration, and so there's a lot of confusion on like what can be deducted and did I save enough money, and how can I tell before April 14th. And so I am in the process of putting out a tax prep course that's going to, maybe having somebody like me in your back pocket is not in the budget right now for your business, and that's okay. But this will walk you through pretty much step by step of like, if you haven't been taking care of your books all year, here's what you can do, and here's how to prepare your tax return. Here's some of the things to look out for, and doing it now at the end of the year versus waiting until January. The reason I'm putting it out now because it also allows you to make changes. So if you are going to owe some money, for example, maybe there's like a course or a new laptop or something, like an investment you could make in your business that would lower your taxes for next year. So by doing it before the year is over, you still kind of have time to like shift some things or make some choices to lower that tax number. So hopefully that helps some people that are freaked out about Uncle Sam and really excited about that. But yes, and then I also still have like my one-on-one consulting for personal finance and business finance that are open for enrollment right now. So
that is awesome. So how can people find you on social media?
On Instagram, I'm at Badass Budget Babe, just all one word. And Facebook, it's Ari Michelle. And you can find me as well. There's links on my website, which is badassbudgetbabe.com. Keep it all simple. It's all one word. So it should be good.
I love it all. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope that everyone, is really excited and eager to go over their budget after our little chat here and after they listen to the podcast. So, again, I'll have you back on soon. But thanks for coming on today.
Thank you so much, Jamie. This has been such a fun thing to talk about. I wish I could talk about money like more often than I already do. It's super fun.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode and this podcast. I love that you were here and give me your time and your attention. It means the world to me. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. And if you really want to show your love, I would greatly appreciate an honest rating or review over in iTunes. So thanks again for listening, and I will catch you all next week.